watching Morning at NTV.
All right, for that discussion that you've been eagerly waiting for. It's all over the dailies. Varsities face the heat of expired courses. Yeah, the dailies talking about expired courses, government issues, a guideline, and so on and so forth. It's coming out at a time when there's a lot of pressure because students, those have been waiting for 6 years to get into university, have been applying for courses left, right, and center. Perhaps those courses are expired or active. That's something that they didn't know that they needed to pay attention to. After all, that was a responsibility of somebody else. And at the end of the day, the future of thousands of current students and recent graduates at Ugandan universities is in danger after it emerged that some of the courses they have been pursuing, have completed, are quote-unquote expired. This definitely arose at the height of a decline in the Bistro University to accord a placement forum for some of the graduates from Makerere University, and it was categorized under expiry disguise. According to the information published on the National Council of Higher Education website, over 2,200 courses being taught in both public and private institutions are expired, with some dating as far back as 13 years. So do the mathematics. If you have done a course in the last 13 years, you need to go and verify and check if you are valid or invalid. And at the end of the day, where is the point of review, submission, a point of reopening of those courses to then become active, and so on and so forth? Before I introduce my guests for this discussion, allow us have a recap to a story that we ran last evening in regards to the same and responses of the community thereof.
The university has admitted that due to laxity on its part, a number of the institution's academic programs are not accredited by the National Council of Higher Education. In a message to staff members, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, wrote, "On our side, there have been unacceptable delays in the review of some programs by departments, schools and colleges, and occasionally at the Senate level for reaccreditation as required by the law. Over 150 courses at the university are not accredited. Some of them expired as far back as 2016, although the university has continued to enroll, teach and graduate students under these unaccredited degree programs." Nawangwe added, "We have not had a system to track the expiry of accreditation of our many academic programs, leading to some programs being overdue for accreditation for up to 6 years. As of 20th May 2023, some of the universities teaching unaccredited courses include Makerere University Business School, Mbarara University of Science and Technology, Chambogo University, Bugema University, Busitema University, Gulu University, Islamic University of Uganda, Kabale University, Kampala International University, Kampala University, Mutesa One Royal University, Ndeje University, Nkumba University, St. Lawrence University, Uganda Christian University, Uganda Matters University, and Victoria University."
I'll give an example of Mbarara University, specifically the course of medicine and surgery that expired around 2015. So any student who graduated from Mbarara University doing medicine and surgery from 2015 is not recognized in this country.
Last month, Uganda National Students Association alerted their patron, President Yoweri Museveni, and the Minister of Education, Janet Museveni, to the storm that is currently brewing. They are yet to receive a response.
Students are wasting a lot of time and energy, and when the documents cannot be recognized internationally. If a course is accredited, it has an expiry date. It should be in the system to show you that this course is going to be expiring soon.
The National Council of Higher Education is mandated by the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act to accredit programs of study in higher institutions. A course is supposed to be accredited every 5 years at a cost of 825,000 shillings.
But then there are those who enrolled on expired programs, studied up to the end when the program is still expired. That is really null and void. Then there are those who enrolled on a program that is expired and then was reaccredited when we were still on the program. Those, the law can still cover them.
However, Professor Eli Katunguka, the chairman of the National Council of Higher Education, exonerates the institution, saying it does not have the manpower to supervise all higher institutions of learning. Katunguka is also the Vice-Chancellor of Chambogo University, which is teaching 74 unaccredited degree programs.
The institutions they are supervising have become too many, now over 52 universities. So that delay may occur. Having said that, 5 years is too short.
Dr. Halima Wakabi Akbar, the Vice-Chancellor of Islamic University of Uganda, blames the COVID-19 pandemic for standing in the way of universities applying for a review of their courses.
Because the institutions were closed and the members of staff, it was very difficult for them to come together, do the review and so on and so forth, because it takes a process.
Universities have not had the budget for convening workshops, seminars, and consulting stakeholders. So that has caused the delay in the processing of these programs.
Professor Venatius Paria Mureba, a former Vice-Chancellor of Makerere University and current Vice-Chancellor of Uganda Technology and Management University, UTAMU, insists it is laxity on the part of the universities.
I looked at Makerere University courses. When I was there as Vice-Chancellor, we ensured that all programs at Makerere University were sent to National Council for accreditation. I've looked at most of the programs accredited then have not been reaccredited. Because your first degree is null and void, then the next degree and the other will also be null and void.
Bernard Owundo, the president of Uganda Law Society, says there can be legal liability for the universities.
They could sue the university for offering courses which are not accredited. And therefore, because I spent 4 years or 3 years at the university, you misrepresented to me.
Some stakeholders blame the policy of appointing vice-chancellors as chairpersons of the National Council for Higher Education.
Chambogo University is having almost 70% of its courses not accredited, and their Vice-Chancellor, Professor Katunguka, is the chairperson of National Council for Education. Therefore, you find that he can't take up such issues because his university is directly being affected.
Professor Katunguka advises universities and other tertiary institutions to take on what they can handle instead of continuously coming up with new programs which are going to increase their burden. Gillian Nantume, NTV Tonight.
Well, allow me to take a moment to breathe through that, because a bad workman blends his tools, says a proverb by the white man. I will hear from my pundits. Maybe there's a Luganda version of that could make more sense. But joining me for this discussion is Patrick Katavazi, Coordinator Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, and allow me to pick your comments and reactions from what we have just seen, and then I will move on to the professor.
Yes, I liked your introduction. Could we pointing to some sort of vulnerability that is likely to arise out of the expired courses? Okay, but first and foremost, the announcement and the recent happenings of the National Council for Education has thrown this country into unprecedented crisis. I call it a crisis because, as you might have heard already, there are programs that have been running, but they expired 13 years ago. I have been reading on social media statements from Cambridge University and other stakeholders, and it gets me to think that there is a lot that possibly we haven't actually even understood on what is going on. The statement from the National Council of Higher Education is also not very, very convincing. But I want us to put this debate into perspective. I have heard the side of the university being liable. I've had the liability of the National Council for Education, but let us take this one into perspective. And here I'm speaking as a former student in one of these universities that
speaking of which, was that within the 13 years?
And I think my courses at that time, there was either no law to accredit them or they were accredited. Because the last time I was in a Uganda university was 2012. That was the last time I was in a Uganda university. But by and large, I want to take an example of Makerere University law program, of which I was a former student. If you actually say the program expired in 2016, what do you mean? I would understand that the program was accredited until 2016. So if National Council for Education is accrediting a program for 5 years like they do for bachelors and masters, in my own reading, I would possibly think that the university has up to 20 years, because a law program takes 4 years. So it means that the first year of accreditation, the program is accredited for 4 years. The second year, 4 years. So meaning that up to 2016, if I get admitted in 2016, it means that as of 2016, that program is still accredited.
No.
So that would ordinarily be my understanding. Because if then you do not take it to be that, it would then actually mean that you can be admitted on a program which is accredited. But down the road, it loses accreditation. But remember, the point of admission was accredited. So which rights then do you have? And for me, that kind of confusion has not been cleared. We are glad Professor is here. We'll shed some more light on that. But I call it a crisis because now take an example, somebody who graduated in 2017 for the same faculty, 2018, about 4 years. What will happen? Shall we have, or do we have in their policy framework, a retrospective accreditation process? And if they are not talking about something like that, what should people do? And I think for me, students of these affected programs at the crossroads, and they want an answer. They don't want play statements. They want an answer. Are they going to accredit backwards? What are the remedies that are available?
Okay. All right. Well, it puts Professor on a hot seat this morning. I can see you're very uncomfortable in your seat. As Vice Chancellor Tutamu, you've been also at the helm of the biggest university in East Africa, Mackay University. You earlier talked about two things, that accreditation at one point X was actually the mandate of the university. Each university had its own university council responsible for ensuring, supervising, managing this particular procedure before it was then moved on to the National Council of Higher Education. In review of when this was still under university councils, how good was it a system? How protected was it a system? How beneficial was it to the students taking up the different courses across the bar?
I mean, that was before the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act came into force. And it came into force in 2001, but the actual implementation was around 2006. And at that time, a university could even take me even 20 years without reviewing any curricula because it is within the institution. So the National Council for Education came in as a regulator. But now, having said that, you need to look at the composition of the National Council for Education. It has representatives from private universities, it has representatives from public universities, and these are elected by the Uganda Vice Chancellors Forum that brings together all Vice Chancellors in Uganda. It has representatives from tertiary institutions. It is all-encompassing. Now, these representatives are supposed to report back, to their constituencies. And as you've heard, currently, the chairperson of the National Council for Education is the Vice Chancellor of Chambugo University. The Vice is the Vice Chancellor of Kabale University, I think. The Chair of Accreditation Committee is the Vice Chancellor. So, by law, and I was at the National Council for Education as a member when the state instrument came into force, that requires the National Council to accredit programs for 5 years. Now, it's like in the employment sector. If you are given a lot of employment, you will be told that your contract is 5 years or 3 years. And you'll be told that before expiry of your contract, if you're interested, reapply.
Process.
So, National Council has done that. The only thing I've not seen in their letters is where, like, if a program is accredited for 5 years and the student is enrolled in the program before expiry, essentially was supposed to follow that curriculum up to the end. So in the letter of accreditation, it should have indicated, like, for you are covered up to the end of your program, but that has not been happening in the letters. So when it comes to the university level, Senate is the supreme academic organ. Now you have the academic registrar, who is the secretary of Senate. You have the vice chancellor, who is the chair of Senate, and they are supposed to ensure that programs are accredited, programs are up to date. Because what are you doing as a Senate, as a super academic organ, by law? Again, within a university, you have what you call the quality assurance directorate or unit. It is also supposed to check these things to ensure that your programs are okay and so on. We have the internal audit department. It's supposed to audit even academic programs, So institutions have institutional structures. to ensure that their program is up to date. So we don't have to say you should rely on the National Council for Education to trigger you. You as an institution should have mechanisms. You know, what to do discuss in Senate. Like I had one of the vice chancellors saying heads of departments had delayed in submitting curricula and so on. That's unacceptable. You see, if you're a vice chancellor, you're supposed to set the pace. You set deadlines, people follow them. I remember in 2010 when we revised all programs of Mackay University, I was vice chancellor then, and faculty of law then. They said for them they can't revise their curriculum. I directed the academic registrar not to advertise their programs, and had to bring them for revision. And they were submitted to National Council for Accreditation. So the University Senate, the academic registrar, the vice chancellor, they have powers not even to advertise those programs if a department or a school has refused to revise them. So having said that, the National Council for Education also put in place a system which is accessible by everybody, and that's why we submit programs online. And this system shows you which program is accredited, which program is being reviewed, which program is expired. Now, the only thing I had a concern with in their system is where like, a program has not expired. I've done my part as an institution, resubmitted it. Now, because they are lacking in terms of capacity, they take time to finish the review and reaccredit the program. But if I've submitted the program in time, that program is still accredited.
Okay, so let's ask, how long does the review process take?
The review process can take from 2 to like 8 months. It depends on who has been given the curriculum to review. It depends on also the resources they have. Because I've had somebody say students pay 20,000
because
annually for that process. But I was there when that fee was introduced. But that fee is not enough. And that fee, I think...
It's not enough for a growing population of those that are actually school-going, attaining higher education?
People are saying that...
Because you have mentioned that it's both private and public, and tertiary at that.
Yes. You see, you cannot control how many programs a university can introduce, or the tertiary can introduce. You cannot control how many programs a university will send for review. And that is why the National Council for Education took a very good decision to say that fee of 20,000 is help with other quality assurance issues, like institutional audits and so on. But now, if you submit a program, you're supposed to pay 825,000 to have your program accredited. So you can now send in as many programs as you want. If you don't want to plan for that money, then you will not run those programs.
Okay, let me interrogate a little bit further. For a particular program X, for example, law, is the law that is offered at University X, is it supposed to be different from University Y?
Yes and no. What happens is this: for each program, there are minimum requirements, and this is done world over. You set minimum requirements, like a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. There are minimum courses that must be taught on that program. Bachelor of Laws, there are minimum courses that must be taught on that program. Now, above that, an institution adds what you feel should define as an institution. You may bring in religious courses. A business university can bring in business courses. Like for us at UTAM, Uganda Technology and Management University, we bring technology and management courses. So you can bring in that. But because of that, the National Council still insists that each program from each institution should be accredited separately. So I think maybe this is something they have to look into. If a program meets the minimum requirements, say Bachelor of Laws, maybe you can look at all of them at once instead of each program being accredited separately.
Okay, Mr. Katabazi, in terms of social protection, because we have to protect society at the end of the day, you know, guns have been blazing left, right, and center for different reasons. We don't know where this could take course of the young people of this country. But how do you see this affecting the education system right now, especially in terms of development?
Okay, education is a social protection intervention because education plays very important roles, including breaking the chain of generational poverty. You realize that there are people who possibly would have been extremely poor, but because they have a son or daughter in their home is educated, then he has gotten employment and has taken that family to another level. So imagine a world where somebody has sold a piece of land to take a son or daughter to the university, and right now news flashing in his or her face is that the degree program that is in the wardrobe of this daughter and son is actually not tenable in law. That is really very, very, very frustrating. I have seen a placer from Cambridge that actually was advising, among other things, that if the accreditation process cannot work retrospectively, then maybe the student should be, is advised to undertake the course afresh. You have studied law for 4 years, you have studied medicine for 5 years, and here you're being told that there's a possibility of actually redoing the entire course.
There's actually a university I know that had to take students through that. They had to stop them midway the courses, and after the accreditation process, they had to redo the process, which is cumbersome, time stealing, and financially straining.
I think to safeguard consumers with the general public, the university should play their role, the National Council for Education should also play their role. I would imagine, and Professor will guide us on this one, if you're running a project for 5 years and there's a possibility of extension, then you have either midterm review or you give it an opportunity to submit way before the program actually expires. I know that still becomes the responsibility of the university, but does the license, if they license a university to start a program such as education, and it is going to run for 5 years, is there a requirement that in the 3rd year, the university within 3 months or 6 months must have submitted documents for the review, so that you have ample time to do this review, not to come up with excuses that, you know, when the program expired after 5 years, we submitted documents and they have taken 8 months or 2 years to be reviewed, and as such, the program became expired. So if we do not have those mechanisms,
the requirements there.
Yes. If
So maybe the mechanisms exist, but do they actually come with repercussions? To state that if you don't do this within this distinct time, then these are the repercussions to the university, to the National Council.
And to that extent, the National Council for Education will issue a statement before the admission process. Because I think in Uganda we have admissions in these universities almost happening at the same time. Then they would issue a statement to say the foreign universities are not permitted.
But this is what has been on the website.
Okay, so when it comes to the repercussions of these systems not being adhered to, do they actually exist? Are there terms and conditions that are applicable within the university councils onto the National Council of Higher Education to be able to ensure that this process is timely and beneficial to the consumer at the end of the day?
Yes, and what I can state is that the National Council has been doing that. And also what you have to know is that the National Council itself, the council that oversees the Secretariat, is comprised of the same stakeholders. And we have proposed over and over again that the vice chancellors, these public institutions, should get off the National Council that oversees the Secretariat. Because you cannot oversee yourself. That is why, like, for example, Chambok has a program that have issues. Professor Katunguki is the chairperson. And they are giving us the reasons why that is a problem. But for me, what I think we can have maybe as a remedy for this current situation, when you allow students to take courses that are not accredited for maybe over a period of 6 or 7 years, it means the first curriculum that was accredited is what they continued using all the way through. So the National Council for Higher Education can take a very bold step within the law to proceed and accredit these retrospectively, these programs, the way they were up to this day, and then allow institutions now to review them going forward.
Okay, does that include, or in that law, is there consideration that in case University X and Y...
No, there isn't.
Let me finish my question. University Katabazi has failed to put in a submission to have their courses reviewed. They've been given a time frame in which they're supposed to operate. They have not met that time frame. Does the National Council have the mandate to rain enforcement on them and perhaps state that these shouldn't be continued or should be discontinued until this process is adhered to?
They have, but they have not been writing to institutions to say, stop this program because you have not done it.
So the mandate exists?
Yeah, they have the mandate.
It has the protection of the law?
Yes.
And so why has it not been realized?
Now, I can't speak for the National Council.
Yes, so okay. Because what I was expecting, you have the Joint Admission Board. And this is really some of these are government entities. National Council for Education is a government entity. So I would expect that information would be available
institutions
as
know.
As where the institutions
about
know.
these programs.
Yes,
but there's been
but also as government, well, government is also broad. But as me who is paying for a number of students, I should be aware that the courses for which I am sponsoring these students on government sponsorship or on foundational sponsorship are valid. And so we need to start seeing these organizations or institutions not working in silo, working together to ensure that there is consistency. If they say there is a Bachelor of Arts in Education program and we're going to sponsor students there, then that quality check must be made to ensure that that is the case. The course is already accredited, it is established, and everything is okay. Because if you don't do that, I think we are going to be dancing from one angle to the other, and who is going to lose? The common person is going to lose. There are people who are likely to get money to repeat. I'm sure there are those who will possibly fall out of the system by this particular announcement. And like professors advised, I think for me then I would apply the other interpretation of saying, if the program was accredited for 5 years up to 2016, it can be taken to mean that in 2016 when I was admitted, the program was accredited.
Accredited, yes.
And until another accreditation, then it remains valid for that. So, but now how do you address...
mean that you don't admit beyond 2016?
Yes, but that also means
but you see,
that whoever was admitted in 2017
is having an invalid... okay, so this again comes down to the protection of the consumer in the education system. First of all, two things come out. Let's talk about the disinformation and misinformation that is then present. Are the universities lying to the students with all this, gloss that they put to the courses that they're offering, giving them the price competition and having students in thousands registering to these universities without them giving them the nitty-gritty information that is important for this decision to be made by a student, because at the end of the day they have to pay. So how do we rectify this misinformation and disinformation to the consumer? Okay, so there are two things. One, I've seen a statement attributed to Uganda Christian University. It's actually saying that the information that is available at the National Council for Education is not accurate. That some of the courses were actually accredited, that some of the courses being said to be expired, they are not running. The National Council does not have enough manpower to keep updating on a daily basis because one course has been rectified. And also that has a negative implication on a student who is innocent, on a parent who is innocent, in the university, by the way, in this case, which is also innocent. If you indicate that my program is not accredited, yet actually, in fact, it is accredited, but the information is still on the website because of manpower issues, then that victimizes me, the student, and the university. So UCU, for example, is a particular example where their statement indicates that some of the programs indicated to be expired. Number one, they are no longer filing them. Maybe that's possibly right for that particular period. Number two, that some of them did not admit students, so there should not be any cause for alarm because those students are not very active, rather those programs are not active. But also, number three, that some of the programs being indicated to be expired actually are accredited. Okay. So there's a little bit again of capacity issues at the National Council of Education, if that is very true. There's capacity issues all over, but Uganda is still moving. It is possible that there are some students who are in international universities now that are going to be victimized, yet actually... Even in employment. But when we talk about capacity issues, really let us be realistic. Universities have people responsible for this function, the academic research and so on. They are supposed to always check with the National Council for Education. So before we dig into that, let's listen to the students that are being affected by this discussion this morning. Stephen Bide, I know that you are on ground at Makerere University, and I know that perhaps some ladies are shedding tears this morning because so many questions are arising left, right and center from the students, both active and those that are applying for the next academic year. What are their voices to this discussion?
Yes, good morning, Priscilla, and good morning to Patrick, and of course the Vice Chancellor, Professor Vanasius Bariamuleva. This is his former home. Let me speak to the students here, whether they feel concerned with the talk that is ongoing about expired courses. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
What's your name?
My name is Abe Constance Achong.
Tell me, are you concerned about the talk of expired courses? Which course are you offering here?
I offer BA Econ, Bachelor of Arts in Economics.
Have you been able to establish whether this is also part of the courses that have already expired?
Yeah, it's part of the courses that was assumed to be expired. Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? How did you receive the news? How did it affect you? Did it even affect you anyway?
Yeah, it affected me. I was so disappointed and, yeah, confused. But I think the university administration is working on it. That's seeing ways forward, like how to address the situation and all that. Because every student is not settled. Yeah, that is it.
In which year are you?
Year one.
Year one.
Yeah.
And what are your parents saying about this? Because I presume if they have already paid tuition and you as a student you are already in campus, how are they even taking in this?
Not so good, much as I'm not being paid by the parents. I'm on government. They're not happy. Not all the parents are not happy actually about all these things. Yeah.
So finally, what are you going to do about this?
We are still waiting for the administration to address the issue on the ground. Yeah, that is it.
All right, thank you. Let me also turn to someone here. Good morning. What's your name?
I'm Amos Okello. I'm doing Bachelor of Arts with Education, a final year student.
What's your say? Are you concerned about the talk that's ongoing, not only from Makerere, but of course so many universities within Uganda?
Actually, about the ongoing issue about the expired courses, for me I think we should not lose hope, because me also as being a final year student, I'm doing Bachelor of Education, and as a teacher, I think let's first wait for the administration, like for example Makerere at large, to come out for this issue, because this issue is not just a joke. Even me at first, I took it as a joke. I was seeing it on WhatsApp. Students are saying, "Kumbe, I'm doing this course which is expired. Never knew." But I think let's wait for the university to come.
As we wait for the university administration to come out, because of yesterday, the Vice Chancellor released their statement yesterday, but still, they are still talking and doing something. But for you, how much are you a private student or are you government sponsored?
No, I'm a private student.
And how much are you paying for National Council for Education?
It was 22,000. Yeah.
And if it stays as it is for now, how are you going to be affected? Because you know you may want to go apply for masters or even seek employment outside of Uganda. How will it affect you?
Of course, it will affect me badly. It will affect me because, like, more so like me, maybe I may not even apply for masters even. Because if this issue even came from overseas, that we're doing expired courses, of course it will affect me, and also my students, also like my fellow students also at large also, they will be affected.
Before I turn to your neighbor there, let me also turn back to you. Minister of Education, we have Minister of Education, Minister of Finance, concerned members of Parliament, everyone should be concerned, every educationist. What would you tell them in a situation like we are now?
Basically, according to me, since we're already facing the situation at the ground, I expect them to give some career guidance, or maybe teach these young ones, these people who are already in Form 6, guide them on the expired courses and all that, so that when they're applying for these courses, they know exactly what to do, not to come here and get disappointed and all that. Yeah, that's what I expect them to do.
Thank you. Name again?
My name is Abe Constance Acham.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to another student here before I go back to studio. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
What's your name?
My name is Josephine. Yeah.
You're smiling, you look happy, but many students are concerned about what's happening. Are you as well concerned like they are?
Yeah, I'm very concerned, but then I cannot kill myself, I can't hang myself. If the courses are expired, they are expired. Yes.
Which course are you offering here at Makerere?
I'm doing a Bachelor of Arts with Education. Yeah.
Which year?
Year 3.
And what would you tell whoever is concerned? I know Patrick Kataba is in studio, Professor Venasius is there, Priscilla Regina is there, but also many people are concerned, the parents, educationists. What would you tell them in a situation like we are now about courses that are more than 2,000 courses are expired?
What I first want to say, maybe Professor in the studio, he should also be careful. You might also let him first check. Maybe even his course is expired. So what I wanted to tell the people outside there, here in Makerere, one time I was in a certain meeting and someone said, being in Makerere is like being in Uganda. So in short, Makerere is Uganda. So I believe every...
Meaning, what is that? What does that mean?
In brief, they were trying to tell us Uganda is Makerere. Yeah. Anything which is there outside is what we face also outside. So I have a feeling even those ones outside other fields, maybe their courses are expired. Even maybe you who is a journalist, maybe yours is expired. We cannot know. Yes. So what I can tell those ones outside there, let's calm down. The situation will be worked upon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking to me, university students here at Makerere. Of course, the concern is still, many students are still having this concern. We're here at Makerere, just next to the Freedom Square and also the University Library. Stephen Ibidon Fefeso Chibuga will be taking you for a short commercial break. Priscilla Regina is in the studios with other experts. They will be talking about much more about this. Back to you in the studios for a short commercial break.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Royco Cubes for the tastiest beans.
Mama, did you know that astronauts grow 3% taller while in space?
Really?
I would like that.
Let's make your wish come true.
Mama, it will spoil the color of the eggs.
Really?
Yes. Master chefs only put salt at the end.
Master Chef.
Mama, did you know the fastest goal to be scored in the World Cup was only 11 seconds?
Is that so?
Yes, and I want mine to be even faster.
Then let's make it happen.
You never know how far their growing dreams will take them. New Lato Grow, fortified instant whole milk powder with vitamins, iron and calcium. Make it happen.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Really the truth, we're all wearing glasses, but even these glasses have failed to see eye to eye on the subject matter as we continue on with Professor Mr. Katavazi analyzing this issue a little bit further. We've heard from Makerere University, the students there. Professor, they keep singing your name across the corridors of Makerere University. Someone here has walked in to say that under your tenure, your authority was so great they used to call you, what did he say?
Young blood.
Yeah, new blood. New blood chart caller. So we were still, tackling the disinformation, misinformation, and publication of this information, availability of this information to the end user, which is the student. So I'm a student. I have gone to University Z, and in light of this discussion and this news, I want to know what the course I'm taking, is it accredited? And so what's the mandate of the university in sharing this information with me? Because chances are the students will be asking, but they'll be thrown off in terms of how they answer those questions. So speaking into that, Professor, please tell us the pros and cons of a student or an end user having this information at the tips of their fingers, making the decisions that they have to make about their education and their future.
First of all, really, it is the student's right to be informed of the status of the courses at the universities. And if a course is expired, or a program is expired, the university is not supposed to advertise it. When you go ahead and advertise an expired program, you arrive as an institution. So some universities are aware that their program is expired, not just now. They were aware even 1 year ago, 2 years ago. They were aware, and they continued. And they continued admitting students on these programs as if they don't have regular departments. But at the same time, as somebody pointed out, the National Council for Education now, I think going forward, should come out strongly. It should, every quarter, review programs at all universities and indicate those that are expired and those that are not expired, so that even students can have another independent source, because the National Council for Education is the regulator, to say these are the courses this university should take. And then also require universities not to advertise those courses that are expired. And the National Council also by law is required to receive admission lists from all universities. So like if a student has been admitted in first year on an expired program, National Council can take corrective measures. Yeah, like now the students who are still on the programs, I think they can be saved.
Okay, but there's also another dimension that I'm looking at. When the National Council for Education is packaging information about expiry of programs, what do they mean exactly? Because I'm seeing in the international circles an impact, and this impact is going to affect so many people, where it actually means that if your course is rated to be expired in 2016 and it is low, it then affects all raw programs that have happened, even those that happened in 2001 and something like that. So it may not be that in law, but I'm talking about interpretation. People will start looking at your courses, the course that you have done, with a possibly different thing. So I think
because if a course has expired, it means it was there before it expired. And so they look at
it's just the renewal. It's a matter of renewing accreditation.
For the information that they are putting on the public, because now we know that it has both national and international implications. I think National Council for Education should also come up with a way in which they package this information so that it does not victimize some people who might be innocent in this matter. So for me, I think the issue of information and misinformation is going to be very, very serious regarding this matter, because universities are saying capacity, the National Council of Education is saying
all this is bringing to light that there's backlog, right? So the reality of the matter is that there's backlog to this whole process between the university councils and the National Council of Higher Education. But in ways of dealing with that backlog, for example, there's people who are now questioning themselves. I did my course by 2016, it was just remaining 1 year, then it will expire. And so what is the implication of that for me finishing my course in 2018? There's that case scenario. Case scenario number 2 is that what is the protection of those that then graduated in the time frame when, according to the National Council, those courses had not been renewed in terms of accreditation? When the backlog is sorted out and verified, will that course at that time, in that period, be then given that accreditation and protection?
You see, what normally happens and what should be the case is that if I'm enrolled on a program and you restructure it, I don't follow the restructured program. I continue with the old curriculum up to the very end. Now the challenge has been, for example, the Bachelor of Laws expired in 2016 at Makerere. The students who already enrolled, ideally they are okay, they follow that curriculum. But because people are seeing on their website expired in 2016, they will think somebody who has graduated in 2017 is not okay. The ones who have an issue are those who enrolled in 2017 onwards. Now, if you enroll and finish in that period, the program is not re-accredited, the degree is null and void. It's like if you don't have the right O-level. So,
now that's where the contention is. The program is not re-accredited, and the reason for not re-accreditation is because of backlog.
Because the university has not submitted the curriculum to the National Council for Education.
No, the university has submitted, but because of what the chairperson said, they don't have manpower, they don't have resources.
When you submit the curriculum to the National Council for Education, immediately they indicate it as under review. So when you say a program that is indicated as expired, it means it has never been submitted to National Council for Education.
Yes, but also there's a program that comes with the under review. Imagine you're applying for a master's program or PhD program in an international university or in any university, and when they check on your academic qualifications online, they say they are under review. They are under review.
Yes, it means...
No, but it depends on the time frame of that.
Is that the program is accredited, but it's being reviewed. like you are reviewing a program to ensure that you have a new curriculum that you re-accredit. So for me, that category of under review, I would still indicate it as accredited. I would only have two categories: accredited and expired. So that if your program expires and you don't submit it, resubmit it for review and reaccreditation, it's expired. But if you resubmit, I leave it as accredited, because now you have paid the fees, the curriculum has been submitted, the revised curriculum, and the National Council will go through the process and come back to say, make these minor changes.
Okay.
And that's it.
Mr. Katabazi, some of these universities have come out to defend themselves that they don't have the money to actually go through that cumbersome process that we are talking about, which is necessary for these institutions to function. That's simple money. Meanwhile, please note that when they are sharing with you the tuition fees, the breakdown is so serious. It's 2 pages. Are you the end consumer? You're paying the National Council of Higher Education, you're paying the Vice Chancellor, you're paying for their fuel, you're paying for your card, you're paying for library, you're paying for this and that and the other. All these costs are broken down for the student, the end user, and they get to pay. They have done their due diligence. How does the university then say they cannot afford to have these courses?
Actually, if I give you the comment, I'll tell you one thing.
Yes.
If you are submitting a program for accreditation, 825,000 is fees of 1 semester of 1 student. You get it? On a program, the minimum you can charge is 825,000 Uganda shillings. So 1 student can enable a university to accredit a program for 1 semester. Fees of 1 semester.
So I think you have information here. Yes. So if his information is accurate, then it means that we have inefficiencies and maladministration in these public universities. And if
it's not just public universities. This matter is
private and public universities. And if you are that vice chancellor who has about 150-something programs that are not accredited,
which is 8.5,
you should be resigning today by close of business, because that means that you are not in charge. It means that you are not doing the right thing. It means that you are abusing a public trust. You're abusing the trust that parents have in the institution. You're abusing the trust that government has in you. You have abusing the trust that the law puts.
Mr. Katabazi, so do we agree that there's a gap there that then maybe would require the government to come out and then set up another council to do the mitigation between the two?
I think then we're also seeing an issue of conflict of interest, because if you are supposed to accredit a university, but you own a university or run a university, that is an apparent conflict of interest. You are to accredit a course, but you're also running a course. There are issues of competition that are coming at play. One university fighting another university, one program competing with another program, and the people in charge of that are the same. So I think we need to have an independent body at the helm of the National Council for Education, so that we minimize elements such as these ones.
Taxpayers.
We hold them accountable, but also in addition, we ensure that they become as effective as we want them to be. The other important aspect, again for me, is on the issue of performance indicators. We should start evaluating these universities. If we are giving them a contract as a vice chancellor, one of the performance indicators should be on the number of programs that we have accredited and those that are running. The audit function in these public universities, public and private universities, should also be very active. I am sure that the internal audit should be flashing these as risk areas.
And you think they don't?
I would think so.
They do?
Yes, and if they are doing that, and you are the boss, you are the vice chancellor, and you are not taking corrective measures to ensure that
when you talk about internal audits, you remind me of an organization I worked for, and I mean the procedure is there because it's mandated to be there, but the response of the leadership to those things that come out of those internal audits, it's never the case. So I started telling the auditor that would come to my desk, like, look here, and these are the things that you said last year. Have my bosses done anything about it? No. So why are you coming to me? Please go to the right office to have your issues and recommendations at the hand too.
On this matter, Minister of Education should come out very strongly on this, because it is a supervising entity. National Council of Higher Education, their statement, in my view, if it is true, the one that is running on social media is very weak. They need to come up with a very clear statement. UCU has put out a statement. I think other universities should as well, instead of lamenting, should come out with a statement that should guide the students and parents on this matter.
So when you get all these statements, whom will the students or parents believe? So then they come maybe from just the National Council for Education.
Okay, there's also that, but there's also that.
Let me pick a quote here from Tambogo University Vice Chancellor. It is not anywhere in the law that an accredited program that has not been reviewed on time is null and void. National Council of Higher Education should pull down their website and put our house in order.
The one in charge, the chairperson.
That's where I was going, Professor. That the conflict of interest mentioned there is already existent. These very same people were doing this very same role at university level. Then the creation of the National Council, and it's the vice chancellors at the universities that are sitting at the National Council, and they are then in charge of and responsible for this. That's total conflict of interest.
And let me tell you,
what is the solution?
I was part of the National Council for Education as a member when we came up with a law, a statutory instrument that requires programs to be accredited every 5 years. So once you are given 5 years of accreditation and the 5 years expire, the program is null and void. It's not there. But let me say this. We may just focus on this issue.
Unless resubmitted within the 5 years.
Let us not forget that the National Council for Education is doing a lot of good work. And even the universities. So this is an issue we want to address.
Is this because you're a vice chancellor yourself, so you're speaking good on behalf of your friends?
I'm not a vice chancellor. I ceased being a vice chancellor at Makerere in 2012. I started with UTAMU, Uganda University. I started being a vice chancellor in 2015. I'm a proprietor. From 2015 onwards, I have other people running the university. So I'm not a vice chancellor. I'm an independent person, but I'm really talking on, like, I'm neutral. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about UTAM. Like if you go to UTAM.
Social protection, Mr. Katabazi. The time is fast spent, but let's talk about the social protection. Privatization has brought to light the fact that people are inspired by greed to enter some of these businesses, which also indicates that there's loopholes that government has ignored to attend to, hence privatization taking the center. And at the end of the day, the Wananchi is suffering at the cost. The students are going to redo some of these courses.
You pay for the course and it's not and void.
Yeah, so I think the establishment of the National Council for Education was a good measure to get rid of the excesses of privatization. Because previously, all the universities were really public. So they opened space for private entities. So you needed something like the National Council for Education to ensure that some of the excesses that might come from the private sector and the competition thereof would be minimized by putting together a law, by putting in place regulations that they have talked about, so that the standards that you get in a public university, you can also get them in a private university. So for me, I think on that was a very good measure. But we continue to see cases where a university opens, students get admitted, it is closed down, or the license is revoked, and the parents are losing money. And this is hard-earned money. Some of them have sold their pieces of land. Some of them have got loans. And then you wake up one morning and you tell somebody that the qualification.
Therefore, that parent has to rebuy a plot of land to resell it.
But this matter where it has reached, Parliament must intervene. Minister of Education must also come in. National Council for Education must come in. And of course, the Attorney General has to come in strongly and provide the government. You know, the Attorney General is the principal advisor, legal advisor to government. So this is the time to come out strongly and advise on the way forward. Otherwise, we don't want the National Council to engage in a fraudulent activity when activity is not guided by the law. So Attorney General is the time right now to come up and really
Professor, I mean, with all due respect, the current pressure for the officers you've talked about is the next financial year budgeting. That's the focus right now. But at the end of the day, the student has to study tomorrow. They have to walk into that class and take that course and take that program for this academic year. There are those that are to enroll. They're not going to wait for the Attorney General to come and make a statement. They're not going to wait for Parliament to come and respond and make a statement about it. And even though those two come out and make a statement, the implementation of it becoming a reality is a whole other 3-5 years, Lord knows, whatever the period. So what is this call to action for the consumer, the end user, to the education system in Uganda?
I'm saying if you're at Makerere University or any other university, check on the National Council for Education website and see which programs are accredited. Ask to be changed to those. If the university cannot allow it to change those ones, move to another university, because I'm sure the National Council for Education is now currently updating the website. When it's bringing information, they're updating if there were errors. But most of the information on the National Council for Higher Education website is true, is factual. So to me, if I'm a student, I'm a parent, I need at this moment to look at what I've created across the university, and I move to those ones.
Okay, Mr. Katabazi, how does this affect Uganda
it does,
as a country?
it does.
Please not in the East African community.
No,
we were trying to merge university education.
And you see what was happening is that Uganda was leading on the education. I remember about 10, 20 years ago, almost all the East Africans were flocking to Uganda for education. But the recent developments do not point to a very, very, very good picture. As a matter of fact, now most of the universities in the region look at the documents, academic documents that come from Uganda with a lot of...
You don't know what happened in Nairobi for the mayor? Is it the governor?
The governor, Sakaja. Yes, with the degree that he got from one of the universities that I think, when you check on the website for the National Council for Education, I think whose license was revoked recently. So our education is getting into disrepute. For some of these, in my view, minor. They are substantial in terms of impact, but these are some of the things that could have been avoided if we actually got on this topic quite in time. The problem is that we are coming in almost at the tail end, where you have so many years and thousands of people getting affected, and all of that stuck. National Council of Higher Education is possibly not giving us direction right now. The Minister of Education is still silent, possibly it is still learning on how to respond to this. It is now us, the Mutuawansi, who is now confused, but not knowing
it is the magnitude. You stated over 2,000 programs. Now, even if you do a verification, we shall still remain with over 1,500 programs expired. And that is the magnitude.
And most likely we are talking about tens of thousands of students.
Those who graduated and who are still on the program.
Some of them have gone for PhD, which means that they will be null and void. Some of them are in employment, so the human resource officers and employment agencies need to check to see whether the staff they have were duly employed. So this is a national
better
crisis.
check with my human resource to see
crisis if needs to be attended to urgently.
Dear employer, please have lenience. It's not my fault. It's the system. And I think that's the plight of so many, because it's made to seem like one small thing, but it's affecting the cycle of life when it comes to socio-economic development from national level down to individual level. So this is where we are. It's a state of quagmire. There's always a 6th killer disease that they speak of, but silence is the 7th killer disease, and you can see how much death has happened within the time frame that we're talking about. It's absurd what's happening in the country. Picking on some reactions here on social media, you do have K.N. Bernard. Wonders will never end. Institutional breakdown. Just imagine some students have been studying on government sponsorship on the said courses and a lockdown. Some of students are on the loan scheme under the Ministry of Higher Education. Uganda. You do have hashtag exploding Neoma saying the VC acknowledges unacceptable delays in program reviews, but such delays are a reflection of the systemic issues deeply rooted within the administrative structure. How can this be taken seriously when they fail to meet the most basic requirements of accreditation? Okay. Due to unacceptable delays, UG lawyer says you decided to go against the law. Hope there's a law that allows you to do so. There is pure admission of guilt, and there is so many loopholes that maybe perhaps what they did to the Mabati saga should be applied to these people. Arrest them, charge them with something, and show that they must take their jobs seriously. You do have those the 2 ministers, 3 ministers that just slept there, and at least it has changed public office and public service for the end consumer to enjoy their money. This is taxpayers' money that we're talking about. Anyway, your comments keep coming. I think it's going to be a week-long conversation, because we end that period of next academic year and admissions. But also to our brain teaser that we had earlier on. You went through the education system. You were familiar with the World War II at some point X, and so we were asking of you, when did the Second World War end? The answer is 1945. From 1939 to 1945, that was the stretch of the Second World War II. Well, It is what it is. I can't give my pundits closing remarks because they have honestly just opened up a can of worms. But maybe in 30 seconds, Mr. Katavazi, how do we close this? What's the way forward?
The way forward, I think we need strong intervention to give general direction on the way forward regarding students who are affected. This should be very clear and precise, and the National Council for Education, together with the Ministry of Education, should also communicate our international partners so that the reputation, our reputation as Uganda is protected. As it is now, it is in tatters.
Professor.
Well, I mean, this is no longer a matter for individual universities or individual tertiary institutions. It's a matter of national importance. And I would like to urge the National Council for Education, together with the Ministry of Education and Sports, because the National Council for Education is a technical arm with the Ministry of Education and Sports, as regards educational matters, to come out with a way forward on all these affected students and graduates, because we need that. Otherwise, the more we delay with the actual way forward, the worse it gets.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. To you, the student, the end user, or the end consumer of this discussion, please ask all the necessary questions. It's not the flagship of accredited university that they are marketing to sell you what they're giving you. Please also ensure that you have the nitty-gritty details, especially with accreditation of your course, how much time is left of it, given the stretch of your course.